what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
We all know Memorial Day marks the unofficial start for summer, but it's also a time to salute soldiers who sacrificed their lives in service of our country. The Memorial Day holiday also concludes National Military Appreciation Month. So in this episode of the Low and Slow Barbecue Show, we meet a military member who serves our nation in the U.S. Army, and he serves barbecue fans through his business, Blue Suede Barbecue. Before we get started, here's an invitation to subscribe to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show newsletter. It's called The Lowdown, and it delivers barbecue news, events, and recipes to your email inbox every Tuesday morning, along with a recap of the latest podcast and blogs. Visit lowslowbbqshow.com to subscribe today, and you can still get the premium content all for free. Now, let's meet our guest, the founder and operator of Blue Suede Barbecue, Chris Losiowski. Murdered it already, Chris. We'll get you to say it here in just a second. You promised. No, you warned me. Loschiavo. Chris Loschiavo.
Yeah,
he's a lieutenant colonel and the chief engineer for the 82nd Airborne Division stationed at Fort Liberty in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Chris, welcome to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, excited to talk to you about your business. First, I want to start by sharing our appreciation for your military service. Thanks for putting on that uniform every day and doing what you do in service of our country.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So, first, let's get started. What is Blue Suede Barbecue? What is it, and what do you guys do?
Well, really, it's me primarily. Of course, the family helps, my wife and my kids, because they kind of don't have a choice. and then a buddy of mine, another Army buddy, another lieutenant colonel, who's in a different career field than me, has graciously volunteered to run my social medias for me over the last few months. And so, it's a team of family and friends. And it's a company that I started back in 2020 during the height of COVID. So, that's a great time to start a side business. And I did it to be my future career when I retire from the Army. And so I plan to begin my transition into retirement this fall, with my retirement being next summer. And so my goal, I offer catering services as well as, a line of products online that folks can get. And ultimately, my goal is to just be a difference maker in the community through the world of barbecue.
Yeah, cool. And we'll talk a little bit more about that stewardship as we kind of move along here. And you mentioned that you got started during COVID. You wanted to start it as sort of a retirement option, but why barbecue and why rubs and salsas? How'd you get going down that road?
Well, I'm from Memphis, hence the name.
Okay.
And so, I've always loved barbecue, and I began kind of dabbling with making my own barbecue, I'd say in around 2010 after my second Afghanistan deployment. And so that could just kind of progress over the years into expanding into expanding my cooking skills and different things in the kitchen, and always wanting to get better. But there was always that draw to barbecue, both, literal and figurative, right? And every time I go home to Memphis to visit family, like the first place they know the first place we're going to go eat when I get home is the Rendezvous in downtown Memphis. And so it just was a natural thing, right? And as friends kept telling me, "Hey man, you got to sell this. Like, you need to bottle this. You need to do this." I said, "No. It's just for fun." But I said, "Why not?" And then finally it was in 2020, and our neighbor and good friends and fellow service member named Erin Helly, who's a phenomenal entrepreneur of her own. She just kept urging me. She was like, "Hey, you need to start this online, and I'm actually going to kind of just bug you until you do." So it just happened. I said, "All right, let's do it. What can go wrong?" So.
Yeah. Okay. So that's very cool. You mentioned kind of a little bit about your background and the Memphis connections there, and you talk a little bit about how you got there. I'd love to hear that tip for the favorite barbecue spot in Memphis and Rendezvous. But I've been following you on social media, and I see you do some catering, you do a little bit of competition, you got rubs and salsas. So of all that stuff, which came first, or was it all kind of at the same time?
No, it was definitely the rubs and the sauces first. The dry rub came first. I modeled it after similar flavor profile to the Rendezvous dry rub. I just think it's phenomenal and gives and I've made it my own. And it makes great color and all that stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
the rub came first. Then I was like, hey, I want to try something different. So I started experimenting with bourbon smoked sea salt. So I started doing that, and then I said, okay, I need to figure out how to make my own sauce because I'm tired of paying for other people's stuff. when I think I can do it either better or I can do it good enough. And so I just kind of experimented with a Memphis recipe, a traditional Memphis recipe, and have just kind of expanded the product line from there. So definitely the sauces and rubs, and then the catering and the competitions have kind of just come on over the last year or so to kind of now that I'm back stateside for presumably the rest of my life, knock on wood.
Yeah.
I'm using the catering and the competitions to further my outreach right to the community, but also to continue to hone my skills and get feedback from people that aren't family and friends.
Okay. Well, so tell me a little bit about that process that goes into making your rubs and sauces. What does that look like? You mentioned you kind of drawn some influence from the Memphis stuff, but tell me a little bit more about, what that process is from beginning until, putting it out on the interwebs for sale.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I start really with the flavor profile that I'm looking for, and I don't always know what that is, but I have a pretty good, I don't want to say palate, but I feel like I'm able to pick up on flavors, right, and can combine flavors and seasonings and spices to get kind of what I'm looking for. And so it's just a process of trial and error. Maybe if I'm completely uncertain about something from the get go, I'll look up a couple of recipes from a couple of folks that I trust and fully am bought into how they cook. And then I just modify it from there. I mean, you can ask my wife, she'll hand me a recipe for dinner to make, and I will not make it like the recipe says. She'll get mad at me, and she's, for changing the recipe. And I'm like, honey, I changed the recipes of Gordon Ramsay that I get. I changed the recipes of, Guy Fieri. Like, it doesn't matter. I'm going to make it the way that I'm looking for. So that's kind of it. So I figure out where I'm going with the flavor profile. And then, I kind of believe that, since I'm not doing this as a money making thing, and this is not something that I'm like, hey, I'm going to be the king of barbecue. If that happens, great. I'm just doing it because I love to do it. I think I'm good at it, and I love to serve people. So for me, I like to tie those products to something meaningful, right? So whether it's the name Blue Suede Barbecue and its connection to Memphis and Elvis Presley in Memphis, to my 901 barbecue sauce, which is 901 is the area code from Memphis, and is the phone number that I had for the first 20 years of my life, right? To the Blind Tiger Carolina Gold mustard sauce. I wanted to tie something to South Carolina, and I was in Charleston earlier this year, and doing one of the stagecoach tours that my wife makes me do every single time we go there. But we learned about the Blind Tiger speakeasies during Prohibition in Charleston, and I had already been thinking about this particular espresso tequila from a local distillery here that I wanted to do something with. I knew I wanted to do something. I knew I wanted to make a sauce, but I didn't know what. And then when we heard about that Blind Tiger speakeasy, I said, bam, that's it. Like, that's the connection, right? So I like to do something that's more than just, hey, here's a barbecue sauce, here's the thing. And so I spend a lot of time thinking about and being deliberate about the name of it, the design of the logo. I do all the designs for everything myself, bottle everything myself. And so I make things that I think are good. Of course, I ask other people, hey, does this taste good? Does that taste good?
Yeah.
And then I just like to tie it to something that I think is important, right? Because then that speaks to more than just what's in the bottle, right?
Yeah, definitely. A personal connection always goes a long way in the marketing world for sure. But, so let me just make sure I'm right. You're getting all these ingredients and you're piling them up in your kitchen and you're mixing them up together and putting them in the bottles and the whole 9 yards. You're doing it by hand yourself.
Yeah, 100%. Everything
Wow.
is done by hand, and it's a labor of love. Like
Yeah.
just last night, as a matter of fact, I had a couple orders come in over the weekend, and so I had to make a fresh batch of my whiskey sauce and get it bottled up and shipped out today, or my wife shipped it for me today. So we do everything by hand, with love.
Yeah, very cool. So you mentioned people order it online. Where can people go and get your sauces?
Yeah, so the easiest place is from the website. It's www.bluesuedebarbecue.com. Pretty
Hmm.
simple. Then I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, as you know, and then we're kind of venturing into the TikTok and YouTube space, and probably will increase that participation later in the year. But the easiest place to go is the website.
Yeah, and that's bluesuedebbq.com, right? So it's the letters
Yeah,
BBQ.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
make sure.
Not spelled out.
Okay, I was poking around there last night. I saw some of your stuff on YouTube as
Thanks.
well. It's some enticing things. You offer some good tips and some good insight to people who are getting interested in that kind of stuff, and it offers some nice personality into your world too. What is your favorite sauce that you're making?
Man, I tell you, I'm a brand loyal guy, like whatever it is, and so that 901 sauce, which I've got the line of products conveniently right behind me, but that 901 sauce it's the first one, So and I just think every time I make it, I taste it and I go, man, like I'm ready to pour it in a mug and just drink it. So
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. But I tell you that Carolina Gold that I came up with recently is quickly becoming an equal favorite for me. And like I said, I'm not a big mustard sauce guy.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so I want to go into the family jewels here and probe some of those secrets that you got. Now, we're not going to go into any kind of confidential military secrets or anything like that, but I want to talk about what really kind of inspired you to do barbecue, and when did you get started smoking meat low and slow? You talk about
Yeah.
2020. Was that the start of it, or do you feel like you've got a further background back on up into your history?
Yeah, no, it definitely goes back farther. I would say it goes back at least to maybe about 2010, maybe even 2009, give or take, and it's what got me started wanting to cook as a way to serve people. Is I was in Afghanistan on my second tour there, and the guy that shared the office with me, my senior non-commissioned officer, my sergeant that worked with me, we were preparing for a USO tour of oh man, I just blanked on the name, James Gandolfini, old the old gangster himself. So he was
Yes,
coming
promise.
over. Yeah, there you go. He was coming over with a couple other folks, and I'm Italian. My family is Italian, and Aaron, my sergeant working for me, he's Irish, but I'll forgive him. And he said, "Hey, I want to make." He liked to cook. And he said, "Hey, I want to make something for Gandolfini as just a special treat." So what we did was we got some. We were able to get some melon and just kind of balled some melon up, and we were able to get some prosciutto, and we just did some melon balls wrapped in prosciutto, and we had that there, and there was a whole like meal prepped and cooked by actual cooks, and then our little platter,
Yeah.
and Gandolfini walks in, and we're in Bagram, Afghanistan, and the first thing he sees and says, he sees that platter of that we made, and he said, "Wow." I won't say what he said, but he was really excited that
Uh-huh.
something that he grew up with, as an Italian American, was right there for him, and he
Yeah.
just, I mean, it like just his face, like everything changed, and it just kind of clicked with me. Then I said, "Wow, like that's that's a famous actor,
Uh-huh.
and we're just giving him some melon and some prosciutto, like, and he's acting like he's back home in mom's kitchen." So
Right.
I said, "Wow, that's powerful." And so I came home from that deployment, and I think it was Christmas, maybe Thanksgiving that year, and family came in town, and my best friend was deployed, and so he let me use his smoker, and it was the first time that I was going to do anything. So he had a Traeger back then, and so I just smoked a turkey and smoked a ham for Thanksgiving. And the response that people had, again, and the other family and friends, of course, but my father especially, being full blood Italian, it's either he means what he says, and so and at that time, or that point in his life, he had already lost his sense of smell, which meant he lost his sense of taste too. So he couldn't taste it, but he ate it, and he put his head down and he came up and he said, "Son, I can't taste the flavor, but this is the moistest, most tender turkey I've ever had in my life. This is amazing." Wow. He couldn't even he couldn't even taste it.
Yeah.
And so that just, I was like, whoa, okay, this is kind of exciting. So then it just kind of went from there. I experimented making my own bacon, cold smoking bacon, and then my wife's from the Pacific Northwest, so doing smoked salmon and stuff like that. And then I just said, hey, let's get into this Memphis thing and just progress from there.
Yeah, very cool. So a little bit is kind of inspiration about that reaction you're getting from folks, whether it's Tony Soprano or your dad,
Yeah.
Other people when they see you, bring it to put it on the platter and they put it in their mouth. That's an exciting, cool reasons to keep doing it. So tell me a little bit about what your cooker setup is like now. So you fast forward to modern day. What do you like to cook on, and what are you smoking over?
Well, that's kind of a loaded question. So I got a little bit of everything. I just actually about a month or so ago, I actually burned up the electric pellet smoker I have. I won't get into that, but something failed. Something failed on it. Way too much oxygen got in there while I was inside, and it's fried. So, but over the last few months, I've been building a giant, and I say giant, and it is offset wood smoker, because I know that there are certain competitions where you got to have old school stick burner, and that's fine. And it's a challenge that I wanted to present to myself in the first place, because over the course of my military career, and as we've been moving typically every 2 years, and sometimes across the ocean and back and things like that, I said, I can't, I'm going to have to go with something simple until I settle down. So I was using some pellet smoker, a char griller pellet smoker, barrel shape, very similar to a Traeger, but a lot cheaper, and worked really well. And then, so now I've got that giant 300-gallon drum that I converted into that offset wood burner. I've got an electric vertical smoker that I use as well. And then I've got an old bourbon barrel that I've converted into a cold smoker as well. So, just trying different things. You get different flavor profiles. But when it comes to the wood, I love pecan.
Okay.
And everything, there's a reason or a season for everything. But man, I tell you what, I love pecan. Mix that in with, mix a little bit of fruit in there, whether it's maple or apple or cherry, to kind of balance it out. But man, for me, bang for the buck, it's pecan. But recently, I had to use hickory because my pecan guy wasn't able to deliver what I needed, so I went with hickory, and actually that's what I won People's Choice on last month, was with hickory. So maybe I'll stick with that too.
Yeah, well, congratulations for that big win. Let's talk a little
Thanks.
bit about your charitable service and that stewardship that I noticed you mentioned there on your website. You call out 3 organizations. It's the Live Like Lou Foundation, the Little Groups of Paratroopers, and the Phi Delta Theta Foundation. So, tell me why you chose those particular organizations to support.
Yeah, I really appreciate you asking about that, and giving an opportunity for me to talk about those organizations. So thank you for that. I believe that, God has given my family and I a purpose, and given all of us a purpose, right? And I think that the more that we've been blessed with, the more we're responsible to give back. And so we just got to figure out what that means for each of us. So for me, it's serving others and assisting those who need help. You know, you can kind of tie that obviously to my military career, but you know, for me, it goes beyond that. So these specific organizations that I support have a close personal connection for me. So I'll start with the Phi Delta Theta Foundation. So they are the nonprofit arm of the National Fraternity, Phi Delta Theta Fraternity, and I'm a member of that fraternity. And I know people have this stereotype about fraternities, and sometimes that stereotype is well deserved, right? But we truly are, our organization truly is focused on something different. And so the foundation exists to strengthen men for life by building on a tradition of the core values, which are friendship, sound learning, and rectitude, which is doing what's morally right. And so the foundation ensures that its college students are receiving, you know, the highest level of leadership education, which is vitally important, particularly for young men these days, so that they can become impactful servant leaders, inspiring thinkers and philanthropists themselves. And so as a member of Phi Delta Theta, since I was a freshman in college, you know, just a couple of years ago, I won't say when, but, I've loved the opportunities to continue to give back and to develop, the next leaders for our country. So, Little Groups of Paratroopers is a national veterans nonprofit organization that myself and some other paratroopers began also during COVID in 2020. It's the same time that I was starting Blue Suede BBQ. And it was started initially as, hey, we just want to, once we get through this COVID thing, we just want to get everybody together again and reconnect. And so it started with that purpose, but we quickly realized that, hey, we've got something here that we can speak to a small community of the military that, not that we're overlooked, because we're not per se, but we're not well understood by even many, I would say the majority of the military. So paratroopers, got the folks that are dumb enough to throw themselves out of planes on purpose. And so what we do is, we're committed, and so I say we because I'm the national board president of the organization, and so we're committed to strengthening the airborne community, as we call it, and making an impact on the lives of those most in need. And so, as a paratrooper and the president, we leverage. I think it's really important, and so we leverage our partners that we've made. We have partnerships with Traeger, Kimber Firearms, and some other organizations and some other veterans nonprofit organizations that do kind of excursions and outings for veterans. And so we've partnered with them to provide for us to kind of be the conduit, right? Because there are 1,001 organizations and things, people doing things for veterans, but it's really hard to know where to find that information. And so we're kind of want to be that conduit for folks to help provide, world-class events and to unite the airborne community, to fundraise and support our local communities, so that we can provide grants and other opportunities to paratroopers, their families, their kids, and things like that. And then lastly, the Live Like Lou Foundation is a nonprofit, another nonprofit dedicated to supporting families affected by ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. They fund ALS research to find treatments or cures for Lou Gehrig's disease and to honor Lou Gehrig's legacy. Now, Lou Gehrig was a Phi Delta as well, so he's a fraternity brother. Not the same years, right, of course, but he's a fraternity brother. And actually, when I was growing up as a young kid, I loved baseball my whole life. And from the time I was probably 9, Lou Gehrig was my favorite player of all time. I watched the movie The Pride of the Yankees, and I said, man, that's a good guy, and he was good at what he did. And so he was always my favorite player. And so to join the same fraternity that he was a part of was really special. And so we have this natural connection with the ALS. And so Live Like Lou was founded by a fellow brother who unfortunately was diagnosed with ALS and eventually passed away. But his family carried on the organization and its mission. And they're in a truly, truly incredible band of people doing amazing things for those affected by this horrible and currently 100% fatal disease. And so, the other piece to that for me is being an active duty soldier. I've learned that the research community consistently shows that military service members are 60% more likely to be diagnosed with ALS than those who never served. And the problem is we don't know why.
Yeah.
We don't know why. And we're seeing that same trend with firefighters, other first responders, and then also, football players. So I think there's that connection with head injuries as well. But we don't know why. That this is happening. And so the kind of the last piece or connection for me is my big brother in the fraternity when I was a college student. Unfortunately, he was diagnosed with ALS about 8 years ago, or passed away about 8 years ago. And so his name was Ralph Doxey, and he's from Mississippi. So, all those connections, it was just too natural, to pair up with these folks. And they're phenomenal people, a small group of people doing just amazing, amazing things. And so, it's a way that I can help others, way to keep Ralph's legacy alive. And I think it's important to do that stuff.
Yeah. So as part of your stewardship and support of those great organizations, I appreciate you giving that explanation, and people can get connections to them on your website at bluesuedebbq.com. What kind of events are you guys doing, to support these organizations?
Yeah. So what I have done so far, and again, it's because, still kind of getting my sea legs under me to really ramp up this business and make it a business rather than a hobby. So I've been donating money and portions of proceeds to those organizations. But I just had a discussion a few weeks ago with the executive director and some other leadership from Live Like Lou, for instance, and we want to put together. We want to start creating an annual, Brews and Barbecue Festival, or Lou's and Barbecue. Play on the name of Lou Gehrig, right? Or Lou's Brews and that kind of thing. So we would, I offered to head that up here in North Carolina. We've got the North Carolina chapter of the ALS Association here, if they were willing to participate, and we have a lot of great microbreweries right here where I live, and most of them are veteran owned as well. So it's a really, it will be a great opportunity to kind of just bring all that together and help each other as we do our different things. So that's for that. For the Phi Delta Theta Foundation, again, it's primarily financial contributions, although I do also do some volunteer work for them. That's me individually. I serve as a judge for one of their graduate scholarship committee. So I'm a judge for that. And then I typically go in the summertime to Miami of Ohio, where the headquarters is at, and I serve as a faculty member for their leadership conference that they host, which I'll be doing that again this year. And they asked me if I would come and serve cook barbecue.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I mean, maybe. How many people are we talking about? And they said, well, at least 1,000. We're hoping for 2,000. I was like, well, okay, hold on now.
That's a lot of barbecue.
that's a lot. I'm gonna need a team for that. And I'm still active duty in the Army, so let's postpone that idea. Let's put a pin in it till next year, and I'll absolutely do it. And what's great is if you know Matt from Meat Church Barbecue, he's a brother as well. Okay. And so we may find an opportunity for the two of us to kind of get together next year and support that event. And then lastly, for the little groups of paratroopers, again, financial contributions with them. And then as we progressively increase our opportunities and our events as the little groups of paratroopers, I'll naturally find the ways for Blue Suede Barbecue to support that as well.
Okay, so a great explanation. Appreciate you sharing that. And again, folks can go to bluesuedebbq.com and purchase your products and know that the proceeds are going to support some of those definitely worthwhile causes. I want to take just a moment here, and then we're kind of running down on time, but I want to talk to you about your military service. And again, a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army, the division engineer for the 82nd Airborne Division at Fort Liberty there in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Take me back to the beginning. Why did you decide what motivated you to enlist in our military?
9/11. So I was a college sophomore when 9/11 happened, and I was
Hmm.
on track to be a landscape architect at the time, which I still
Hmm.
love doing that stuff. But and I come from a long line of service. My father, many of my uncles, cousins, a couple aunts, grandfathers, you name it. So, but it wasn't until 9/11 happened that I said, okay, it's my time. So I originally went the Marine Corps route for their officer candidate program, but we just had we'll just say some paperwork issues on their end that just dragged out for a really long time. So in May of 2003, I switched over to the Army just because I just wanted to serve and do my part. So
Hmm.
so I commissioned as a second lieutenant in 2005, and I will retire presumably in in 2025 after 20 years. So
Yeah, wow. 20 years of service to our country. That's definitely admirable,
thank you.
especially getting started in such a tumultuous time there when our country really needed folks like you the most. With kind of that in mind, and again, the Memorial Day holiday is right
hmm
here around us. What does that holiday mean to you?
Man, that's a tough question to answer. And it's tough because it's hard. It's hard to
Hmm.
answer.
I'm sure.
Veterans Day is a little bit easier to answer because that's for everybody.
Hmm.
Memorial Day, as you pointed out at the onset, is special because it's for the folks that didn't come back,
Hmm.
and it's tough, and I'll just leave it at that. And I'm grateful for the opportunities that those that have gone before us have laid out for me, my family, for you, your family, and everybody else.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for that
Yeah,
perspective, and can definitely tell it means a lot, and understand
yeah,
why it might. We
yeah,
talked a little bit about our secret recipe. Won't get into that a whole lot. I will tell folks you can get it on the blog. Chris is going to share it with us, but it's for your South Carolina gold mustard sauce.
yeah.
So look for the blog there. Again, don't go to any details. Share it with me in the email, and we're gonna put it out there on the blog. But why did you choose that particular sauce as your secret to share out there with the world?
Well, because I'll tell you one, it's new, right?
Hmm.
Newish. It has been selling. I've sold out of it, I think, 3 times already. And every time that I've had an event, so I had 3 events in April, and that's right when I first bottled it. And
Hmm.
every time that people would taste it, they had kind of the same reaction that I did was, "Oh, hey, whoa, that's different." Like,
Yeah.
I had people say the same thing. Oh, I don't like mustard sauce, and I was like, "Hey, neither do I. Try this one." And I'd give it to them, and they were like, "Oh man, I like you make this?" I say, "Yeah, I make this myself. Like, this is different. This is not, it's not like it's not way out of in the woods crazy, but like it's
Yeah.
different. Like what they're like, what is it that is different about it?" I said, "Well, I put some ingredients in there that I don't think you normally find in American barbecue sauce. There's a little bit of Korean red chili uh, pepper or red chili paste in there called
Mm.
gochujang. It's really, it gives it that little bit of backdoor spice that comes in on the back end. You're like, oh man, I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
There's some adobo sauce in there as well, and then really what does it? And I'm telling you, I tried making another batch with a different liqueur, and it wasn't the same. It was the same type of liquor, but it was not the same flavor. And so I want to give a shout out here, and they don't know that I'm doing this, and they don't pay me to do this, but to the Cape Fear Distillery. This is their Tech Cafe tequila coffee uh, made with espresso, and it's phenomenal. And I'm telling you, that's the key to the sauce is that right there, and yeah, I'm really happy about that one, and so that's why I decided to share it.
Well,
Plus, I
thank you
wanted to
so
give a
much.
shout out to another local business, and
Yeah, that's great. We love to support the local guys wherever you are. You support your local. You're supporting your people that you know and that are around you. So we're going to wrap it up here. I want to ask you, just right quick. You kind of went into a little bit of this, but what's next for Blue Suede Barbecue? Obviously, you're going to retire
Mhm.
from the military, but what happens next?
Yeah, that's man. I tell you what, I'm asking myself that same question. My wife's asking me too, but so I start my retirement transition in October, and so that's really when I can really focus, almost wholeheartedly on this. And so, I'm just trying to figure out, do I want to, I don't really want to do a brick and mortar. I don't think, although I've got an offer to build 2 restaurants in Elizabethtown, North Carolina,
Hmm.
which is actually where Cape Fear Distillery is. So another person there has asked me to build 2 barbecue restaurants there. That's kind of a lot right off the bat, so I think we may
Uh-huh.
have to pump the brakes on that. But I think what I'm going to end up doing initially is I'm just gonna invest in a good either food truck or trailer that I can just be a little more free about where I'm doing my barbecue at, and I'll do as many events and competitions as I can. I just within the last month put the catering option on the website, so folks could actually just put it there on the website and then start the communication, the request that way, rather than having to email me and go back and forth. You just go right to the website and put that in there. I also did about 2 months ago. There's the Ironwood Cafe here in Pinehurst, which is a phenomenal restaurant. To me, it's the best restaurant in the area.
Mm.
They commissioned me to do 6 briskets for them over for a weekend special menu that they were running. So I
Wow.
did 6. Yeah, I did 6 briskets for them, and they did it. They served it. I believe Thursday, Friday, Saturday as a special meal, and then on Sunday brunch they did a special like brisket eggs Benedict with it, and it was just, I mean, apparently it got rave reviews. I was actually out of town all weekend. I didn't even get the chance to
Yeah.
go try it, but I think they sold out of it as far as I know. So I think there are some opportunities, continued opportunities there, and then there's another local place here in Aberdeen, North Carolina called High Octane Coffee, and the lady that runs that's really really great lady, and her family's a veteran family as well, and so she wants to bring in these after hour um, like food and music events to her space there, and so she's commissioned me to do at least 2 nights. We're going to do like a beer and barbecue night, and I'll do like 3 meal pairing for her, and then we talked about doing like a bourbon and barbecue or whiskey and barbecue night as well. So that's kind of the immediate future,
Yeah.
and we're just going to see where this takes us, brother.
Definitely some great options out there for you. Again, Chris Loschiavo, Lieutenant Colonel, appreciate your time and sharing some of your story here with us on the Low and Slow Barbecue Show.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Love what you guys do. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Well, you've been listening to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show on the Mesh.tv network of podcasts. Be sure to visit us online at lowslowbbqshow.com. That's where you'll find the blog, and you can hear other podcast episodes featuring the Carolina's great pitmasters like Chris. If you like what you hear in the Low and Slow Barbecue Show, please follow us and subscribe in your favorite podcast stream. Remember, you can subscribe to the new newsletter, The Lowdown. It's all at lowslowbbqshow.com. Special thanks to Chris Loschiavo from Blue Suede Barbecue. Thanks as well to our producer, Andrew Moose, and the whole team at the Mesh.tv network of podcasts. Most especially, thank you for listening to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show. Remember, for the best barbecue and the best barbecue podcast, make it low and slow.
You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.